All right, we are back. Our next guest is Adam Kokesh. He was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps Reserve and is a veteran of the Iraq War. He came back from service, became an activist, and now is doing, in my opinion, the most honorable thing and trying to run for office and change things from within, really taking the power into his own hands, trying to have a government for and by the people again. How are you tonight, Adam?
Outstanding. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Why don't you give people a little bit of your background, when you found out that you were actually going to be going overseas, what your experience was there, and so forth?
Well, I actually volunteered, so I kind of found out on my own that way. But I was 17 years old when I was going to the Native American Prep School in San Ysidro, New Mexico, just north of where I live now in Santa Fe. And one of my mentors there was a former Marine captain who served as a Motor T company commander in the first Gulf War. And he inspired me to enlist at 17 in the delayed entry program, which is, what I did. And I signed up, and it really meant something for me at the time to have my life on the line for something I believed in. So it was really cool to be able to join the Marines, first to fight and all that, hoorah, and have a combat MOS. I started out in the artillery, and then I joined the reserves because I was going to college, and I wanted to, but I really wanted to be a part of the national defense for whatever small part of it I was for whatever short amount of time. Like, it really was very meaningful to me to be a part of that. And I just wanted to have my life on the line for something I believed in. And so after training, I deferred college for a year to go to boot camp and then Marine combat training at Camp Pendleton and then field artillery school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I went to college, and 9/11 happened. Didn't really affect me too much personally. I didn't have anybody who was, any family on the East Coast or that was directly affected. And the biggest thing for me was having the next day off of school. Mm-hmm. But when I saw the war in Afghanistan, my unit wasn't in any consideration for getting called up, so I wasn't really paying too much attention. But when there was the lead up to the war in Iraq, I was against the war or against the invasion, because intellectually I was a non-interventionist, and I really understood and believed the advice of our founders, at least theoretically. I thought I did. But what I was lacking at the time was a good enough appreciation for the great American tradition of being lied to by our government. And so I believed the story. I thought that what we were doing was cleaning up our mess and responsible foreign policy and somehow genuinely trying to do good by the Iraqi people. So that was something I enthusiastically decided to risk my life for and volunteer for. And I dropped out of school in December of 2003. I was majoring in psychology at Claremont McKenna College in Southern California, and ended up serving as a sergeant on a Marine Corps Civil Affairs team in the Fallujah area from February, September of 2004. Some of us found out the hard way that the greatest enemies of the Constitution that we all swore an oath to support and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, are not to be found in the sands of some far-off land, but rather right here at home, occupying the seats of power in Washington, D.C. And the rhetoric that is being used to justify these occupations, the shifting justifications, is nowhere near matching up to the reality. And some of us had to find that out the hard way.
Well, I want to take you back on the other side of this break to right before you get into Fallujah, what your expectations were, and then just take us through, your first experiences overseas. Like you said, some people had to see it the hard way. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. Go check out the websites, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv, and my little blog, theinfowarrior.com.
The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com.
This is the beginning. Watch what you think, they can reach your mind. This is the beginning. I got my mind, see it in my eyes. This
are back, and we're joined by Adam Kokesh. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. He's going to be running for Congress in New Mexico, and again, I think that's excellent, and I really wish him the best. I hope he can get a lot of people behind that. KokeshForCongress.com is the website. Now, you go over to Iraq. You're against the invasion of Iraq on moral grounds, just by what's going on around you and in the mainstream media, really, at this point. Tell me what it's like.
Actually, it was this is an important point in terms of the transformation that I went through. It wasn't a moral objection, really. It was more of an intellectual objection, and I just believing the intelligence, believing all the crap and propaganda that we were fed, I still it didn't add up. It wasn't the bottom line didn't make sense. It wasn't going to be worth it for our country. But this goes to the transformation that I experienced, which is really one I can only say is going from being intellectually engaged in politics, from being interested and fascinated and engaged, to being spiritually involved. Is really the only way I can describe it, where having gone through what I went through and having the visceral realization that the issues that we debate about, that we call politics, aren't academic. They really are a matter of life and death. Mm-hmm. And not just in the obvious ways, but in so many subtle ways that we've been propagandized into believing don't really affect people or are, acceptable consequences or collateral damage. But that really, when we're talking about government and what is government and use of force in society, we're talking about life and death.
Yeah, we're talking about reality, real issues that matter. And, not just something you see on a movie screen or see on the television. I mean, again, these are people's lives. So you go over there, and, what are some of the first experiences that you have over in Iraq?
Well, I was on a civil affairs team, and the first thing, we didn't even have a real role. They didn't know what to do with us. And this was really the pivotal thing for me in my experience, in understanding that they were making a big deal out of civil affairs, right? Because at the time, the justification of the month for the war in Iraq, or rather the ongoing occupation, was we got to rebuild. We broke it, we bought it, blah, blah, blah. And that's what we were told we were going to be doing in civil affairs. So we thought we were going to have the resources and the support, and we were going to be the tip of the spear, leading the charge to rebuild Iraq and all that happy horse crap. And we were six-man teams attached to regiments or battalions. And you couldn't go anywhere in the Fallujah area at that time without a minimum convoy size of 6 Humvees with machine guns. That was just the basic security protocol. And we had to beg these infantry commanders to get out on their mission, or tag along on their convoys to get out and do our mission. And so it was really frustrating. But we came up with a slogan to justify our existence to them. And it was, we care so that you don't have to. And to the macabre Marine Corps sense of humor, that was hilarious at the time, but if you stop and think about it for a second, it's really screwed up. Mm-hmm. Because that we care so that you don't have to was not just about our relationship to the Marine Corps infantry. That we care so that you don't have to went all the way up the chain, up to Ralph Paul Bremer, to the Joint Chiefs, to Vice President Cheney, to, if he ever pretended to care, to Bush, so that he could gush on and on about how much good we were doing the Iraqi people while perpetuating a policy that was destroying their country, but really all the way back down to the American people. So you could go back to sleep and they could go be back in their bubbles and not paying attention to the crimes that are being committed in all of our names with all of our complicit support. And so that's a huge thing for me, coming out and being able to wake people up and tell the stories of veterans. And through my work as an anti-war activist, helping veterans tell their stories and, dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, reconciling their experiences and turning them into something positive that helps fight the power and make the world a better place. And, for me, I was attached to, my team was attached to Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines during the siege of Fallujah. We were actually first out at Rock Ammo Supply Point, and that was a little weapons store of Saddam that was between the city of Fallujah and Camp Dakota, a big logistics base a little bit to the southwest of there. And they told us one day, mission, but we can't tell you where. This was, of course, right after the incident with the Blackwater security agents, and I use the term security agents very loosely in a sense, when they drove across the southern bridge over the Euphrates into Fallujah and were ambushed, killed, and had their bodies strung up and burned on the northern bridge there, which precipitated the siege of Fallujah. Of course, if we had known that what we were doing was putting a city of approximately 500,000 people under siege, we would have packed for more than 3 days. Mm-hmm. But we changed rules of engagement more often than we changed our underwear during the siege of Fallujah. And the absurdity of it all was just, we had these cards that they gave us, the rules of engagement cards. They still issue these to the troops